This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and it is now 2025. If you thought we'd ever get here, man, did that feel like a long shot. But we made it. We're here. I know I took a couple weeks off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your holidays. I certainly did. And I think it was good to sort of get away from it for a second and kind of sort of live the Vegas life so I can come out and give you guys some sort of update on what's going on in the city. So it's sort of good, this like little time away from each other. But really glad that we're back. In this episode, I'm going to be covering what I think is going to happen in 2025, at least in the city of Las Vegas, in terms of like the food and beverage scene and kind of things that I think might be transpiring, and some of those like hot food trends that are coming out, and maybe some parts of the city that are going to be getting a lot of influx of really restaurants and lounges, and might become a real interesting place to hang out this year. So we're going to be going over all of that here on this episode of Concierge Confidential. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So a couple of things that I have seen in town that I'm not really jiving with. I really don't. Let's get to the price thing. Everything in Vegas has become very expensive. We all kind of know this. But one of the things that I really do not enjoy is when something is like empty and they're charging a lot of money for it. So my brother came to town, and I don't know if I mentioned this on a pod before, but we ended up going out to the Cosmopolitan, which was a very busy day. And we tried getting into the barbershop, which the barbershop we had to wait an hour. They said, well, we're opening the doors up in an hour, and then you guys can come back. And it was lame. By the way, they said opening up the doors up to like the general public at like 9 o'clock. The barbershop, guys, is a bar. So like that thing opens at 5 or 6 o'clock, just so you know. So went away from that, tried to go to a couple of other speakeasies, still busy. So we ended up at Click, which Click is funny because that's the name of a company in town that does lounges. So we end up going to Click, and my brother's him and his wife and a bunch of other people, and we're trying to like figure out like what to do here. And we decided, hey, like we'll just like go get this table, whatever. How much could it be? I mean, it was like $400 minimum spend, and it's like it might have been $500 to be honest, and it was empty in there. Like, it really was empty. Like, that was, I think, dumb on us for ended up spending that much money for that space. And, I mean, we did it. We paid for it. People are going to pay for it, obviously. But I don't like it. I don't like that all of these spaces that, you know, you could just have people walk in, sit at the spot, and sort of, like, make your place look busy. People are going to order drinks when they're there. It's just that's what happens. And, of course, it is a business, but that's one thing that I see a lot of. And I think that's one of the things that Vegas is going to get a lot of now, is you're going to get a lot of these things where you have to prepay for seats, even at restaurants, some places. Like there's places that have like prime viewing, for example. I saw this when I went to, I was going to go to the Bellagio for the Super Bowl, but at the Bellagio, if you had a seat with a view or on the patio, they were going to make you have a minimum spend of, I believe, $150 a person, maybe $175 a person. And no one wants to do that. Like, no one's going to do that. I mean, obviously, there's people who do. It's a very large world. But I don't like that it's sort of like undemocratic now to where you just, again, you pay and you get in. And again, I'm maybe a bad offender of this, but, you know, in sort of like the cool, like old school Vegas way, like I tip the bartenders at Delilah's so I can get a seat at the bar, and it happens, but that's straight to the bartender. This is very much a corporatized version of that, where I guess there's a trickle-down effect to the tip, but really, I don't enjoy the requirement of having to pay for that spot. I like sort of like you could walk in, maybe give a tip to the hostess to the hostess in general, the host, maitre d', and you get a good spot. That's very, very old school Vegas. It's sort of like how it used to work, and I don't like it. And I think that's something that you're going to see a lot of on a lot of these restaurants. So I actually had another experience of that recently, like less than a week ago. I saw that over at the Bellagio at Mayfair Supper Club. they were going to have a special show inside of Mayfair Supper Club that's going to be sort of a limited run for 12 weeks, and it's called Cleo or Leo. Can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. But I've seen it before, like in terms of I saw the advertisements before, and I was like, hey, maybe I'll check this out. It's something new. It's something different. I've never seen it before in a space that I'm familiar with. I'll go check it out. So there I go, making my way down to the Strip on a Saturday night, which if you've ever been to Vegas on Saturday night, you know how busy it gets. So couldn't park at the Bellagio. Had to use my, concierging skills, knowing that, where and how to get places quickly. Parked at the Cosmopolitan, used the walkway that's in the back of the hotel that connects to the Bellagio. Got there, walked to Mayfair Supper Club. It was about 7:20, 7:30. I get inside. It's a little empty. I was like, oh, it's kind of empty in here. There's nobody at the bar. So walk up to the bar, sit down. And I looked at the website before, granted. I looked at the website, saw that they were doing this. It's important for the next part of the story. So I get over there to the bar, sit down, and then the bartender says, are you here for the Leo show? And I said, yeah, I guess. And he says, okay, just so you know, it's $300 minimum per person tonight. And I was like, I gotcha. And the guy says, no, really? And I said, really? And I couldn't believe it. And he said, oh, you didn't talk to the hostess up at the front door? I said, nope. Blew right past them, which I guess, it's my bad. But that's kind of the thing, though, guys. Is like I just walk right past the hostesses, which you should too, especially if you're going to be sitting at the bar. Because once the hostesses stop you, it's sort of like their first line of defense. And to get into some of these places, it's actually good just to walk right by them. Just say, hey, I'm going to sit at the bar. They're not going to stop you. You can go sit wherever you'd like. So moving from there, I just told him, yeah, I'll just have a drink. I'll be out of here by 8 o'clock. And he said, okay, fine. Sells me the drink. It was good. It's good, cool, whatever. But I don't like it. I don't like this whole, I guess because it's a show, they do shut down parts of the restaurant. They have to make up that revenue because those tables are down. And again, business decision, I get it. But maybe put it on the website before people start, reserving when you go. And it happens, you make the reservation, and then you're going to end up, make the reservation. It usually pops up, and they tell you, hey, there's a spending minimum tonight. But, it kind of be nice if you just put it out there already. Because, again, it's their job to try to get you into the restaurant. Maybe a bad part of planning on my end, but you're going to see a lot of that going on. I mean, the Eiffel Tower does it. Bellagio obviously does it for the steakhouse. I was just actually trying to remember the name of the steakhouse, which was Prime, over at the Bellagio, which I haven't eaten there in quite a while. So I think that's the thing that you guys are going to be seeing a lot more of these charge for premium seats at a restaurant. So we'll see how that goes. So speaking of restaurants, let's talk about some of the restaurant trends I think that are going to be hot coming up this year. So interesting. I think we're in sort of a time of transition for a lot of restaurants. I think a lot of the sort of established spots are kind of running a little bit old for some of them, and I think people are looking for new locations. So, one of the really big announcements was Bazar Meats is moving over to the Venetian, which I think that's the right move. It's a much better property than the Sahara, and I think they're going to get a much more frequent clientele that they're looking for at that property. But the funny thing is that you always kind of see the trends of what type of cuisine is coming into town. Last year, I said it was Mediterranean. Everybody now has Mediterranean. We now have an oversaturated market of Mediterranean cuisine, and now we have to find the new type of cuisine that we're looking for, which I haven't put my finger on what it is yet. But I would say that in the coming year, 2025, we're going to get a large influx of dim sum restaurants and Mexican restaurants, hip Mexico City restaurants. I ate at one over at the Cosmopolitan called Amaya. Very good, actually. Really recommend. I love the thing that they did with the room. It's where the old Holstein space was. Loved the bar tops. I thought it was really cool, very modern feel on the inside of the restaurant. And I also liked the drinks that they had. And the food was quite good. I had their queso fundido, which was quite good. I had their steak, carne asada, quite good. So highly recommend that place. Hope maybe I'll do a video on it soon. Who knows? But really enjoyed it. But I think you're going to see a lot of these Mexican restaurants popping up. So it's sort of these middle to high end Mexican restaurants popping up and down the Las Vegas Strip and downtown. But really excited to see what they do. I'm really excited to see what they do with like the Mexican cuisine in town. And I think it's an easier sell. I think Mediterranean's kind of tough. I know people who are more health conscious, but Mediterranean, especially for Americans on the West Coast, especially in Nevada, could be tough to sell, especially people on vacation, but who knows? And there's no beach. That's the kind of the thing with Mediterranean cuisine. Mediterranean cuisine feels best when you're by a ocean or like the Mediterranean Sea. Mexican you can enjoy anywhere. People love Mexican food, so I think that'll be everywhere in town. So with that being said, it's really interesting to see, speaking of Holstein's, that Holstein's, the burger place, is actually going to be opening up a restaurant on Main Street, which is in between Fremont Street and Las Vegas Boulevard. And I'm interested to see what happens. I will definitely be going, and I think it might be a fun little space. It'll feel sort of more old school in terms of like just a mom and pop place. You have this big giant thing over at the Cosmopolitan. But this one will be a lot more fun, I think. Maybe the prices will go down on some of these burgers. But I really think that it could be a really successful thing for them because the revitalization of Main Street is astronomical. I never thought I would ever hang down on Main Street ever again. Main Street has always been known as sort of like the street with lots of coffee shops, lots of lounges, local restaurants, obviously. Not really like, popping in terms of nightlife, but really fun for bar hopping. But they have Holstein's coming in. There's also another restaurant coming in, which is actually a lounge. My friend is actually, an acquaintance is actually opening it. And then Lou, my favorite bartender over at the Wakuta restaurant, is like sort of like the head of the bar program. And I'm really excited to see what they do with that space, just because I think it's really fun. I think it's really going to fit that part of town. And I think that part of town is now really cleaned up in terms of Main Street, which is in the Arts District, sort of like the main strip on the Arts District. So I am really excited to see what they do with that spot. So Main Street, I think, is going to become a hot spot. They also have all these different cool like theaters coming in and stuff. So I think Main Street is the part of town that will get the biggest bump in 2025. They also have a place called 1228 Main, which is sort of the San Francisco inspired sort of bakery restaurant kind of deal. And they also have, of course, all these other properties sort of popping up on that space. In that sort of thought, let's talk about something that Vegas never really had, but they're starting to sort of become more and more sort of the thing, with the Poodle Room opening over at the Fountain Blue, which I think it was like $10,000 a year to invest in to be a member. No, thank you. But there's this new place that I've read in the Review Journal. It's called the Doberman. The Doberman, I'm just reading straight off of the website here. The Doberman, a membership application for the private club, and that has a couple questions. It's going to be on First Street, which that is in sort of in the downtown area. And it says your favorite drink in your favorite seat while your favorite song plays with your new favorite people. Interesting. So we'll see how that works out. These membership things can be successful, I suppose. They're really popular in places like New York and Los Angeles. That's because you have a very large population. You also have a very large income population in those areas, that these places are able to thrive. Vegas is no stranger to that, but we usually get people that are visiting in town to go to things like this. But locals can obviously do this too. So we'll see how this goes, especially for it being off the strip. I think it's going to be a really fun idea, but I'd really enjoy to see how this place does. So that'll be very interesting. But I think more places are going to start doing this. I think like places like the Wynn are well suited to membership-only clubs, Cosmopolitan, Fountain Blue, Aria, obviously. But it's sort of a cool thing, and places like the Aria. I think the thing about the Aria is, I always use that as the example. The Aria sort of like likes to pretend that it's fancy, but they don't really know what fancy is. So that's my 2 cents on the Aria Hotel. But with that being said, I sort of went over the lounges. Lots of country music opening up. Jason Aldean has a new restaurant over at the Bally's property. And overall, I just think you're going to get a lot more country flair on the Strip. I think that's for anything in town, especially things going on at the Sphere. People always ask me, like, what artists would do well at the Sphere? And the thing is, sometimes people, like, will throw out, like, oh, I really think Beyonce would do great there. It's like, would she, though? Because Beyonce actually does a lot of dancing. And this is the biggest thing about the Sphere that you have to know, is that the Sphere stage is not very big. The Sphere stage is really just a very large rectangle, and not a long one either. You're there to see the actual Sphere images themselves. So you're not going to see a lot of these performers like Taylor Swift or Beyonce. They're not going to be there. You're going to get a lot of classic rock bands, country stars, just because they're more in tune to having like a band where they'll be able to be a little bit more stationary. And I think it's just a little bit easier sell to do it that way. I don't know who's coming next to the Sphere, but I would really like to see maybe some country artists. I would really like to see maybe a more modern people. I mean, I just said that you won't see that, but like Dua Lipa would be awesome. But I think this would be a really well-suited place for Adele. I think Adele would be awesome just because I've seen her show at Caesars, which is now, closed. And the visuals on that screen were so cool. And if you just projected that on the giant Sphere, like dome, it would be out of this world amazing. So I really think that could be a really fun sort of draw for the Sphere crowd for sure. Yeah. But yeah, man. So I went to Delilah's obviously the other night. And I just love people watching there. One of my favorite things is to people watch over at Delilah's. I met this woman who was in her 60s, had all of her jewels on. She looked good. And I was like, what's up? But really fun. Like, she was like, yeah, like I really wanted a good seat. So I tipped the waiter $60. We had this whole conversation about tipping in Las Vegas. And we've had a whole episode about this. But tipping $60, that's a baller move. You get really good seats if you tip $60 in a restaurant. I usually sort of top out at 20, which this actually reminds me of a story that I just wanted to tell. I ended up going to Mother Wolf on a date. Hello. And the girl that I went with was running a little bit late, but it was fine. She was right on time. And I went to the hostess before everything started. This might be a good tip for everybody. I went to the hostess before she got there, and I said, we're here just checking in, but she's not here yet. Just letting you know, she's run a little bit late. And they're like, okay, cool. And usually get about 15 minutes past the time. So I was like, thank you. And then I tipped her $20, and then cool. And then my date shows up. Very nice date, I think. And we end up going in, get seated. Nice table. It was like on a corner, sort of like where the booth and the chairs are, like a booth chair set up. But it was on the corner that had sort of a curve. So it was actually quite nice that it wasn't a very small table. It was actually a round table, a little bit bigger. Kind of next to the kitchen, which is actually where you want to be, because that's sort of like the heart of the action. So really enjoyed the table. So thank you, hostess at the Mother Wolf. And found out that if you order like a full menu for like 2 people, they do have a Sifano bread. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's a really delicious bread. And it's usually $12. But we just ordered appetizers and an entree, or 2 pastas. And we got the bread for free. So I don't know if this had to do with the tip that I had at the beginning, but they hooked it up, gave us some bread. The bread was free. Thank goodness. Then from there, we had dinner and all that other good stuff. And then we're like, yep, we'll get dessert. So I was really excited for dessert. I didn't really like the dessert we got, but they have really, really good tiramisu there that I wanted to try. But they're like, save room for dessert. I was like, yeah, well, if we could just check out the menu. And they said, cool. And Didn't bring the menu, just brought compliments of the chef, this pumpkin whatever thing with ice cream, and it was good. I had never had pumpkin before in my life, and I had a pumpkin style cake or whatever it was. Obviously, they were trying to get rid of it because it was like December, and they're trying to get rid of all of their, things they don't need. So that's okay. But I ended up having it. It was delicious. It was really, really good. Recommend it. I think it was a special though, so it's probably not on the menu anymore. But goes to show you, if you tip the cocktail waitress, if you tip the hostess, pretty good chance you get something going. But you gotta make sure that the hostess understands the situation. Like, situational awareness is key, because if you get sort of a young hostess who doesn't know like what this all means, you may not get the things that you might want. So just important for everybody to know that you should all know what is going on when it comes to tipping, and sort of know what your expectations should be when you're tipping in Las Vegas. So with that being said, I had a really good winter, really, really fun, very, very busy, a little stressful. Went to Disneyland. That was a thing. Funny thing was, so going back to Disneyland, so before I close this out, it's always fun when you go on vacation and you're from Las Vegas and you've worked in hotels and you start like comparing everything. It's just a natural thing that you do. And we stayed at the Grand Californian, which is connected to the California Adventure. Nice property, pretty nice. Has that old school sort of like sort of timber Oregon feel to it. It's like a lodge, and really, really fantastic job that they do there. It's Disney, but man, it's so funny to see the differences. So like if you go to Las Vegas and you are getting, what's the word I'm looking for? Not room service, but housekeeping. Housekeeping may not hit your room until like 2-3 o'clock, and that's that's late. But I've seen people get their room made up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening. So not great, Bob, but you get your shit done. That's fine. But man, these ladies at Disneyland do not mess around. Like, the thing is, I think it's a very different crowd. We went to Disneyland and we're there like at 7. We're there at like 8 or 9 o'clock, very early in the morning. And these housekeepers are at the door knocking at 9:30, 10 o'clock. They're like, we got a lot of rooms to get through and we're ready to go. But it's a thing. It's funny how the different cultures sort of work, even within, even within the United States, and how the business is run. But really first class service, I would say, from Disneyland, which is kind of what you expect. So that's really, really good sort of marks on them. Also, do not go to Disneyland if you're looking to watch sports. I was on the Disney downtown Disney, and you would expect like maybe one sports bar. 0 sports bars, my friends. 0 sports bars. They have one place called Lucky Strike, or whatever the pins place. It's like bowling balls, and they have a big giant bar. It's real nice. They do not have the Sunday ticket, so it was a very interesting experience trying to watch football games that weekend. It was week 18, so I was only worried about one game when we found it. So with that being said, that's our episode back to Las Vegas, sort of gradually getting you back into coming to town. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you're excited about the things coming to town soon. And hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon, maybe next week, here on Concierge Confidential. And again, I forgot to mention, oh my goodness, I haven't done this podcast in so long. If you see me out in town, come up, say hello. I'll say hello back. Delilah's, Collins Bar, that's a place I like to hang out at. And if you do see me, remember, keep it confidential.